All right, Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum, guys. Welcome to the Ummahpreneur live podcast. And in this episode number 13, I have with me none other than Haleema Amina, also known as Haleema Speaks. And she is a public speaker. She's spoken on stages before, on TV, and also a coach on mental health. And the reason why I wanted to bring her on and why I wanted to share her story with you and her insights with you is because Haleema is someone who has also been through struggles with mental health herself and has been able to overcome them in a beautiful way. And I want her to share her story with you and her insights with you so that we can all, as entrepreneurs, as Muslims, benefit from these stories and from these insights and really use them to become better as entrepreneurs and as people and really help those around us and help ourselves. So today I'm super excited to dive into this topic with her and really just share her story with you guys and let her get to know you guys. So Haleema, welcome to this podcast. I'm so happy that you joined us today.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. So thank you for having me.
Alhamdulillah, it's definitely exciting and the honor and pleasure is ours. And Haleema, we start every single episode in the same way, which is we want the person to kind of share their background on how they became an entrepreneur. Because this is the Muslim Entrepreneur podcast, people love to hear the backstories behind it. And I know your story is a very unique one. So can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to become a mental health coach, to speak about this topic, to become an advocate on this topic? What was the journey that you went through that got you to where you are today?
The journey's a very long one. I've had a bit of I'd say dramatic life since I was a kid. I didn't come from the best background, so I experienced a lot of different traumas throughout my life, so like spread it out. It obviously resulted in me having a lot of severe mental health issues, like from early on. So I had depression, I had anxiety, like a few different forms, PTSD, and obviously I was self-harming by the age of 14. So There was a lot that was going on like in my head that I didn't understand, and everything that I had like gone through, everything that I'd experienced, it resulted in me trying to take my own life about 4 times. The final time was when I was 24, just after my 24th birthday, and I was sectioned. It was the first time I'd gone through with it. So I was sectioned, I was in hospital. I came out of hospital and the care system that had been put in place for me was terrible.
Okay.
So the way that these so-called professionals were supposed to handle me, they didn't, the way that they tried to take care of me, it just seemed like they had no training. They didn't know how to treat somebody or speak to somebody that had the issues that I had. And in fact, instead of making me better, it was making me worse. So what I decided to do was just do it on my own. I thought, if I'm going to get better, I'm not going to do it with anybody else's help. Like, it's going to come from me. So I disappeared. I said goodbye to everybody. I disappeared. I started to focus on my own recovery. I structured my own recovery and I started to document it because I find writing really therapeutic. So I used to do it a lot when I was a kid. And now with social media, I thought, okay, maybe I could do this a bit differently. So I just started documenting things, putting up a few posts here and there. And before you know it, I started to get messages from people saying that I'd, inspired them, or they were really happy and they were grateful for something that I posted because it helped them in some way, shape or form, or inspired them or motivated them or anything of the sort. And when it started to happen regularly, I thought to myself, do you know what? There's something going on here. Like clearly there's something that I know that people are benefiting from, and like I could really do something with this. And I never intended for it to be a business. It was just something I was doing because I was passionate about it and I was having my own breakthroughs and I was getting better myself and I was just sharing my breakthroughs with people. And before I knew it, I got invited onto Sky News, which is like one of the biggest news platforms here in the UK. Once I went on to that and I saw the responses I got from there, then I was like, okay, like I could really do something with this now. So since then, it's just literally been mainly raising a lot of awareness, educating people, public speaking. But then now in the past 6 to 7 months, I've been turning it into an actual business. And obviously recently just released my first ebook and, inshallah, many more different services and products to come.
Definitely, 100%. And it's really amazing to hear that story. And I thank you for giving us kind of the gist of it, because I know there's so much more details in there. And for those of you who are interested in knowing all the details and nitty gritty, she actually has an amazing interview on Sky News. It's on her website that we'll link in the comments later, guys. So make sure to check it out. So Haleema, in this story and in this journey that you went through, you mentioned that the first place that you turned was to the institutions that were in place before you decided, hey, I'm going to take matters into my own hand. You decided, let me kind of give this a shot and see what's out there, what's available for people like myself who are struggling with it. I think if we rewind even a little bit more, what was the point where you realized, I think there's a problem here and I think I need to take a step to fix it? Because a lot of people sometimes they might think, hey, I'm just, this is just like a one-day thing. I might just be I kind of woke up on the wrong side of bed kind of thing, or I'll get over it. It's just a few negative thoughts or a few negative experiences. How did you pinpoint that maybe this is a more serious problem that needs to be taken care of? What was that point that got you there?
Well, to be honest, I think deep down for a long time, I knew that there was something wrong. But being in the state that I was very resistant to admitting it. I think that's one of the biggest obstacles between us and our own recovery. It's actually admitting that there's a problem in the first place. So for me, it was like there were so many signs there, so many unhealthy patterns that were happening in my life, like toxic behaviors, like everything was pointing to me, like the world was showing me, like, Haleema, there's a problem here. Like, these things are happening for a reason. But I used to run away from my problems a lot. It's that whole out of sight, out of mind perspective. So I thought if I don't think about it, if I don't talk about it, then it doesn't exist. So it wasn't until I actually was in hospital after I was sectioned that I actually ended up realizing that there's actually something here that is bigger than what I've realized, and I need to tackle this. Because essentially it was the first time in my life that I was actually alone with my own thoughts. Because when you're in a mental health unit, you're in a room on your own. Yes, you can have your phone, but you can't have your charger because of the health risks. So when your phone dies, you have to give it to them to charge. So I would sit there on my own with nothing around me but four walls, and I had no choice but to think. And when I was thinking and all these things were coming up to the surface, after a few days, when my emotions had died down, then I realized, you know what? There's a reason why all of these things keep happening to me. And I really it was there and then I knew exactly what I needed to do. And then it was just a matter of doing it.
100%. And Haleema, once you went to the institutions in place, and I really just want to thank you for being vulnerable with us today and sharing with us your story, because I know it's not easy when someone goes through this to be open about it. And because there's a big stigma around going through mental health issues. People think, once you go through these issues, you're kind of like sectioned out, or, you're an outcast from society. And people kind of view it as this big thing. But the truth is, a lot of us go through it at one point or other in our lives. We go through a period where we face certain issues. I mean, no one is perfect, whether it's because of our upbringing, because of our childhood, because of certain traumatic events, or something happening in our life right now. We sometimes will go through issues where we need to take care of ourselves mentally to be able to be better. And there's a certain stigma around that, of course. So you mentioned that once you went to the institutions, you then realized this wasn't really working for you, and you had to take charge and take some steps yourself to get better. Can you give us a little bit of a preview on what those steps looked like? What did you do exactly?
So what I realized, which was the biggest breakthrough that I had, was that the reason as to why I was where I was in that moment in time, it was never about other people, because my whole life I'd been blaming everybody else for my circumstances, right? He did that, she did that, my friend did this, my family did that, this person did this, and it's their fault that I'm like this. But when I realized that actually the reason why I am where I am today is solely because of me, it's not to do with anybody else, it's because I've allowed it to happen. And that was when I realized that actually the state that your life is in, it's only like you can only hold yourself accountable. Right. So when you take ownership of that, you take away the power from everybody else. Because when we blame people and external sources, we're giving everybody else the power to fix our problems, because we're basically saying that they're the ones that caused it. When you take the power away from everybody else, you hold yourself accountable, then the only person that now has the power to fix things is you. So what I realized was that, okay, it's my fault. I'm responsible for this. Now I need to figure out the how, the why, the when, and all the little bits that will basically me unraveling my whole life and figuring things out. And I realized that nothing in my life, nothing bad that happened in my life would have happened if I'd loved myself better, if I'd cared about myself more, if I valued myself more, and if I knew who I was. So instead of, doing what people think and, you know, talking about all of your issues and things like that, I decided to take a different approach and just focus on me. So when I disappeared from everybody and I just went into my own little isolation bubble, I spent the time just getting to know myself. So it was more or less just, you know, taking myself out, understanding myself, spending time by myself, journaling my thoughts. Like there were so many different like exercises that I tried and just tested out to see how they worked. But what ended up happening was that I ended up really getting to know who I was, really understanding myself, like, because when we're surrounded by people, there's so many external opinions that interfere within like our thought processes, especially, you know, being Muslim, like our communities love to have opinions of everything, right? So
of course.
I needed to get away from that, because it's not necessarily because the people around me are bad people. They just don't understand, you know, they're not clued on, they're not educated in that aspect. So they're doing and they're saying all the wrong things, even if they've got the right intention. So getting to know myself and being away from everybody else was the most important part of my recovery, because in doing that, I started to learn more about myself. I started to love myself more, appreciate myself more. And when all of these things were happening, then everything else just fell into place. Like all the other deep rooted issues that I had developed, like because I valued myself so much, it was easier for me to deal with all of those things, you know, and it was easier for me to set new boundaries so that all of the things that happened in my past never happen ever again. There's so much to it, but I think the main thing was definitely the self-work that I did, where I took the focus off everybody else and just put it directly on me.
100%. I think honestly, there's 2 points that I would bring up in response to that. Number one is just that if you really boil it down, that's actually what Islam teaches us to do, which is, you know, there's so many things that we're told about and so many, you know, hadiths that we have in regards to how, you know, focusing on other people or talking about other people or, you know, discussing other people's lives and what they're doing is actually a huge sin in Islam. But the whole core of Islam is to actually try to better yourself and try to be a better person. And I think, you know, as you mentioned, there's also stigma about mental health in our society and in our community. And I think that also stems from that, is that people are so focused on what others are doing and what they're up to, instead of just focusing on how they can be a better person and help themselves. And I think that's huge. And just the second point I want to bring up as well, Haleema, in response, is what you said reminds me of when I first moved out of my parents' home. You see, I didn't actually take the traditional route of, you know, waiting to get married and then just going from living with your parents to living with your spouse. And so I had to go through a period where I was living on my own. And I think when someone asked me what that was like, and I did it for a few years, my response is always this, is that when you kind of go from a place where you're constantly surrounded, right, you with your family and your friends and your siblings, and you kind of go live on your own, you then have to go to these dark places within yourself, right? These places where you have to face your demons in a way, because there's nothing out there to distract you. And for some people, that's really hard. That's really tough. And it can sometimes take them to a dark place. But if you make it out the other side, and if you actually face these demons, you come out the other side with such a stronger conviction on who you are and what you want out of life, and just, you know, what you deserve and what you're okay with and what you're not okay with in your life. And I think it's something that every person needs to do. And I think one of the reasons maybe why in the Muslim community it's not brought up as much, or people are not as aware, is because people kind of go through this lifestyle where they're with family and then they're with their spouse. And so they never have time to be alone and really reflect on themselves and who they are, right? It's just straight from, all right, family to spouse. And there's no in between where, you know, take some time alone and figure that out. So just you saying that really reminded me of that. And I wanted to just shout it out, honestly.
It's such a good point, because it's so true. Like we need that time to just focus on who we are, because essentially as well, if you don't know who you are and you're not happy and comfortable being on your own, when you do get married, it's not going to be a healthy marriage anyway, you know? So that's why even for me, like I lived in a totally different city from my family for like the past 5 years. In fact, I only moved back with my family like this year, just before the corona lockdown happened. So for me, it was like, I've gotten to know who I am. So I know obviously if I end now when I get married, when I have my own family, like it's just going to be such a healthy unit because of the work that I've done on myself. And I know that I won't ever be interested in somebody who hasn't also done the same thing as well, because I now value the work that I've done and who I am, which I didn't before.
And you realize that when you come out the other side and you kind of figure that out, you realize you can tell right away if that person has done that same work or not. You kind of feel it right away. So I completely relate. Of course, 100%. So one other thing I wanted to bring up, and I'm loving the conversation right now because we're hitting so many amazing points. It's, we talked about mental health. We talked about it in the Muslim community a bit, and we'll touch upon that again later. But I want to bring it also back to entrepreneurship. As entrepreneurs, we a lot of times feel like we have to power through our difficult emotions. We wake up and we're very kind of go kind of people, right? Like, let's take action. Let's make sure we're getting our tasks done on time. Let's make sure we hit our goals, we hit our KPIs. And we sometimes tend to put our mindset and our emotions and our mental health on the back burner, right? If we're having a bad day, we'll just tell ourselves, let's just power through it. But the consequences of that long term is that we start to not perform at our best. We start to really not show up at our best and not do our best work. So I guess my question for you, Haleema, is as entrepreneurs, what would be a good way to distinguish between, is it just a bad day, or is there something that we maybe need to take care of? What's a warning sign that we can look out for?
Do you know what? I always say to everybody that we have everything that we need inside of us. Mm-hmm. It's like we often search for answers elsewhere, but to get the real answers, you just need to look into yourself. You just need to listen to your body. Your body's always speaking to you, right?
Yeah.
And from experience, I know, because I tried to build businesses when I had when I was going through my severe mental health issues, when I was, homeless, when I had severe anxiety, I was still trying to build businesses. I was ignoring the problems that were going on. And I was like, no, I need to be successful. I need to make loads of money. I need to do this. I need to do this. And I was just focusing on that. But when you're not dealing with the issues, when the most important part of your body, your mind, is not working, you cannot build a successful business. It won't happen. I've been there, I've tried. It's mm-hmm. It's like somebody breaking their leg and then telling them to walk it off.
Right.
It's not going to happen. They need to stop. They need to pause. They need to rest and recover. And it's the same way that if you have issues that need to be dealt with, even if your issues aren't severe, and you have minor anxiety that just crops up now and again or something like that, you still need to listen to it. You still need to learn it, understand it, find out, let's sit with your thoughts and find out exactly where it's coming from, where it's stemming from. There's something going on that has triggered that in you. And instead of ignoring it and then letting it get worse in the long run, if you sit down and you take a moment and pause and tackle that issue, then it won't happen again. Okay, you might lose one day of business, but that one day of business, losing that one day is mm-hmm. nothing compared to you potentially having a burnout and then being out for months, because that's what happened to me. My doctor said, you can't do any work for the foreseeable future. I didn't even have a timeline, Yeah. So for me, learn from my mistake. Don't have that feeling and ignore it, and then watch your life come crashing down 6 months, a year, 2 years later. The second you detect that something's not right, figure out what it is. If you can't do it on your own, there's so many people out there, professionals, that will be able to guide you in the right direction and give you the support that you need. You're never on your own with this.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree with that. And what you mentioned is really something that resonates with me deeply. And it's that your rest and the time that you take off is part of your workday and part of your business, because just like in training and in exercise, rest days are just as important as days where you're active and you're working out, because you need that time for your muscle to grow. And I think we sometimes treat our muscles like that, but we don't treat our mind like that, where, just like your muscles, your mind as well, it needs a little break. It needs to be taken care of. It needs a bit of loving, right? So make sure that you do take the time to do that as well, and listen to your body and listen to your mind as well. So I definitely agree with that. Now, Haleema, what's something that, I'm actually someone, and I'll be completely honest, I'll be vulnerable with you too. I'm someone who's suffered from anxiety before, and it took me a while to kind of get over it. And part of me kind of living on my own, that was also part of the process. So it's interesting that you kind of went through the same thing. So I can really figure these things out for myself. Now, what's something that you can recommend for someone like myself who kind of feels anxious at times? You mentioned that you dove into writing as one of the things that really helped you move past it. What's another tip as well that you can maybe give to the listeners today? Because I want to make sure that we're giving them as much value as possible.
Yeah, of course. I'll bounce it off from my own experiences. Sure. One of the things that I did when I was, learning healthy coping mechanisms was I looked into my childhood and I started to think about the things that I loved to do as a kid that I don't do anymore. It's the whole concept of connecting with your inner child, because as children, you know, we don't care about anybody's opinion, you know, we just do whatever makes us feel good. And it's something that I feel as adults we've lost, and we care too much about everything that everybody else's expectations, and we're less bothered about the things that we actually want to do, the things that make us happy. So I was a really creative kid, you know, I loved to draw, I loved to write, I loved to like sing and dance, anything that was expressive, I just loved to do it. But, you know, just for so many different factors, I just lost it on the way. And in doing that, I lost a part of myself. So when you lose that part of yourself, that results in these things like anxiety and depression, because you're not living in authenticity. Like when you don't live like authentic to who you actually are, there's no fulfillment. There's always going to be something missing. There's always going to be a void. You know, like sometimes people go, there's something missing in my life, but I don't know what it is. Like, that's what it is. Like, you're not living true to who you are. So that's what I did, is I looked further into that. And that's why I started to write again. You know, that's why I started to do all of these different things, like, you know, draw a little bit here and there and just find new ways to express myself in a creative way, because that's when I'm at my best and that's when I'm at my happiest. And for yourself or for anybody else, I would say look at the things that you loved to do as a kid and try and start picking back up on those things, or try new hobbies. You know, there are so many things that we haven't even tried that we probably would really love if we actually gave it a shot. And it's 100%. Just about, it's about that aspect of things. It's not always just about, I need to sit down and I need to like dive into my past and sit there and cry for 5 hours to feel better. Like, yeah, okay, healing, like the ugly side of healing is very crucial as well. But sometimes it's just something as small as the things that you do in your day-to-day life that make you feel a certain way. And when you change certain things like your habits or your hobbies or your interests, or even like the people that you're around, like it makes such a huge difference to like your general state of mind. I didn't even do anything extreme to remove the serious anxiety that I used to experience. I just learned a few healthy coping mechanisms. So if I did get that feeling of anxiety, I'd be able to talk myself through it. But I just changed my lifestyle. You know, I cut out so many people that I knew weren't good for my life. And I focused again on myself. I picked up different hobbies. I spend more time on my own now than I do with anybody else. And it's liberating, you know, like, and I'm at my happiest, I'm at my healthiest, and I'm always in just a state of calmness, like contentment, because of those little things, you know?
And that's huge, Haleema, because honestly, it's something that I tell others as well. And we've kind of spoke about it on this podcast in a few previous episodes, which is the importance of having these hobbies and these things that you do on the side that kind of just bring you so much happiness inside of you and really help you reconnect with that inner child within. Because again, even as entrepreneurs, guys, if you're working on your business all day and you know you're out there and you're on the grind, you need to have something outside of these working hours that just helps you recharge your battery. And having some sort of passion, some sort of hobby that you enjoy really helps fulfill that need within you of recharging that battery and really recharging your mind as well, so that you can come into work and be positive and have those, you know, those great ideas when it comes to your business. And one thing for me as well that I discovered recently, the gyms in my area closed for COVID, right? Because of the quarantine and everything else.
I feel your pain.
100%. So I couldn't go anymore. And I'm like, oh my God, how do I exercise? I used to love going to the weight room. So I'm like, all right, let me try something new. And I'm like, okay, let me just take up running. I mean, you just put your shoes on and you go out for a run. It's not too hard. And I realized that I actually love it. Like, it's super nice to go out and go for a run and just, you know, be outside and smell the fresh air and break out a little bit of a sweat. So I realized this is something that I never tried before. And I thought I hated, but I ended up loving it. And so it just goes to show, guys, that you know, there's so much that you can try, things that you might even think that you would hate or that you wouldn't enjoy, but then next thing you know, you love it and it brings you so much energy. And now I really love to start my day with a nice little run, or even just end my day with a run so I can get tired and fall asleep properly. So just an amazing tip there that you gave, to look at what things you can do that really bring you that happiness, that really reconnect you with your inner child. And I think that's huge. So thank you for that. So my next question to you, Haleema, is as Muslims, and this is gonna be a sensitive one, and I'd love to hear your answer on that. As Muslims, we sometimes associate mental health issues with a lack of connection with God, right? With a lack of iman. We sometimes tend to confound the two, and I think unjustly. So I guess before we even answer that, in your journey that you went through yourself, was this something that you experienced? Did you feel like the connection was also part of it, or was it all of it? Was it some of it? how was that connection to God for you related to your issues, or was it even related at all? I'm very curious to know.
I don't think there's any relation whatsoever with your level of faith and the state of your mental health. Like, some of the theories that I've heard from the Muslim community, like it's ridiculous. It's
Right.
like, you know, they come up with these theories that, oh, you must be possessed, or it's just because you don't pray enough, and
Right.
just little things like that. And I've been there, you know, and I've had those theories thrown at me as well. And at the time, being as unaware as I was, you know, sometimes you actually start to believe it. Like, you know, is that why I'm like this? Like, am I actually possessed? Has someone done black magic on me? Like, these are the things that come into your head.
Right. Like instantly black magic for everything, pretty much.
I need to really, sorry, I think there was a connection issue. Just
no worries.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna get you back.
Okay, because I can see a black square where my face should be. But no, I'll keep talking anyway.
Go
Yeah,
for it.
for
I think
me,
it'll come
it
back
was
soon.
like when it comes to like your faith, like I said, there's no correlation. Like, your mental health illnesses have nothing to do with your level of faith, because mental health illnesses are a result of environmental factors. Like, you could be the most committed Muslim in the world,
Right.
but then you suffer from some kind of trauma and then develop a mental health illness. Like, it doesn't make you a weak Muslim, like, at all, you know. I think there's an ayah in the Quran as well, in Surah An-Nisa. I actually wrote this down so I didn't forget. I really wanted to touch on this, but it says that verse 59, it says, "Oh, you who believe, obey Allah and obey the messenger and those of you who are in authority," right? And the way that I look at that is, authority refers to people of knowledge, like your doctors, your therapists, people that know better than you in certain circumstances. So when you are experiencing a mental health issue of any kind, like, you should be going, it's something that needs to be taken seriously, and you should be going to people to make it better, to find out solutions, you know. Just praying doesn't make it better. It doesn't fix the problem. Prayer, yes, okay, it's compulsory in our religion, but prayer doesn't fix your illnesses. Like, you actually have to do the work in order to fix them. And especially when you suffer from like depression or anything of that kind, you suffer from a lot of energy fluctuations. Me personally, I suffered from a lot of energy fluctuations when I was depressed, and it was really hard for me to get up and pray. Like, I physically couldn't do it. So
Right.
for me, it was not being able to, like, having people say to me, "Oh, you just need to pray." It's really hard to hear that, because people just think you're not doing enough. But
Right.
in reality, when I started to deal with my mental health problems and I started to get better and I started to get healthier, then praying was something that just became easier, because I was happier. And actually, taking time out to just focus on my recovery and the whole spirituality side of it actually brought me closer to Allah in the long run.
Yeah.
You know, whereas my faith was weak before, but recovering brought me closer to Islam.
Yeah, 100%. And I completely relate to that. And I think it's what you said, where when you're in a better state, then you can show up even better to your worship, to your prayers, and to the things that you want to do connect with God. And sometimes we must address these issues separately. I mean, as you mentioned, you know, prayer does help. And of course, it really helps bring that sakina, that peace within. But sometimes the issue might not be an issue with connection with God, and it might be an issue with something else, such as maybe, you know, something that you've been through in your childhood, or a traumatic event or a traumatic experience in your life, and you want to make sense of it. So I think a huge thing is to try to, you know, address it while also trying to keep up as best as you can with being a good Muslim and practicing your faith. Before we continue on to the next question, Haleema, I'm just gonna, maybe I'll re-add you on the live, and we'll see if that works out for the camera.
Yeah,
All right, let's do it. One sec. So we're just going to re-add Haleema on the live right now. So this is the thing about doing these episodes live, guys. Sometimes we'll have a little bit of a technical issue, but while you're seeing me here, let me know in the comments, guys, how are you enjoying this episode? How are you enjoying this topic? Let me know if you're getting value. If you are, drop me a hashtag value. And as well, we're coming up to our Q&A portion very, very soon. So make sure that you drop your questions, inshallah, at the end for Haleema to answer. And let me know, have you been getting value out of this episode so far? Have you been getting insights and gems? Because this is what I aim to do with this podcast. Let me know in the comments, guys. I'd love to hear your feedback and your opinions. Drop me a hashtag value, and let's do this. So we have some questions coming in, and inshallah, the guest is reconnecting in a second. let me know, guys, because this is why we do what we do. And in terms of mental health, one reason why I wanted to bring it up is because, again, as entrepreneurs, we struggle a lot with these mental health issues, right? We struggle a lot with waking up and maybe facing anxiety or facing, certain feelings where we kind of have to push through difficult emotions, and we want to drive forward. We want to continue being the best entrepreneur possible, the best business person possible. But sometimes we might feel a little bit of anxiety. We might feel a little bit of, maybe sad or negative thoughts, and that might affect how we show up in our business and the level of ideas that we have in our business. So it's really important to take care of ourselves and take care of our mindset so that we can show up at our best, inshallah. And this is why I brought to you Haleema, who's just absolutely crushing it today. All right, we're back. Let's go ahead and do this. All right, yes. Awesome. Alhamdulillah, back at it. So good to go. Did you hear me fine?
Yes, everything's perfect.
Okay, cool. So apologies about that, guys. Thank you for sticking through with us. And again, drop a hashtag value if you're enjoying this. Make sure to drop your questions for our Q&A at the end so that we can answer all your questions, inshallah. And just to kind of continue where we left off, Haleema, we spoke about, as Muslims, is our mental health issues associated as well with your level of faith? And a lot of people tend to confound the two, and that causes a lot of harm in the Muslim community, because a lot of times someone could be praying their 5 prayers, they could be fasting when they need to, they could be praying all the sunnahs, and they could be a great Muslim, but still face, depression or anxiety and not understand why they're facing those issues. And sometimes they might go up to an imam or a sheikh and they might ask them, hey, listen, I'm facing this. And they'll tell them, listen, you need to read these surahs and you need to pray. And that's great. And you definitely need to do that as well. But sometimes you might also need to see an expert within that field, right? Whether it's for your depression, for your anxiety, for your bipolar disorder, anything else that you may be experiencing. So it's really important that you take care of it as well, and that you address it at an expert. Just like when you have a issue with your faith, with your spiritual connection, then you go to see an imam. If you have an issue with your mental health and your mindset, you need to go ahead and see an expert at that as well. So there's an expert for everything. And I think there's this story, I don't know if you know about it, Haleema. It's an amazing story that I heard before. There was a guy, I think it was like some sort of Bedouin or something. And I really don't remember the context of the story, but I'll share the story because it's awesome. There was this Bedouin who was known for having a lot of Islamic knowledge, in his city. And so a non-Muslim came up to him and wanted to challenge him. And he came up to him and he told him, listen, I heard that Islam has the answer for everything in the Quran, that there's the answer for everything in your holy book. So I want to know, how many grams of wheat does it take to make a loaf of bread, right? And he asks a ridiculous question like this, and I want you to get me the answer from your Quran. And the Bedouin, who had a lot of Islamic knowledge, said, sure, I'll give you the answer. Just give me a minute and follow me. So he tells the non-Muslim to follow him, and he basically heads to the local baker. And he goes to the baker and he asks him, hey, can you tell me how many grams of wheat are needed to bake a loaf of bread? And the baker gives the answer, and then the Bedouin gives the answer to the non-Muslim. And then the guy says, hey, but I thought you were going to give me the answer from the Quran because it tells you the answer for everything. And the Bedouin tells him, well, the Quran tells us to ask the people of knowledge when we don't know. And so that's why the answer is in the Quran. And that's exactly, I think, the case for mental health, is that you want to ask people of knowledge when you don't have the answer and when you don't know. And so, guys, going to an expert is just as much part of Islam as going to an imam when you have an issue with your connection with God, with your spirituality. And I think that's just an interesting point to bring up. So I want to thank you for that, Haleema.
I really like that story.
Yeah, I love that story too. And
honestly, I'm going to take that from you.
Definitely. And guys, honestly, I just want to let you know that I completely butchered it. It's like not exactly what it is, but I tried to give you the gist of it, guys. But it's a lot more beautiful when you actually read it word for word. I wish I remembered all of it.
You did good, don't worry.
I appreciate it. So as long as you get the message behind it, that's what matters. So again, we talked about that. There's a stigma regarding mental health issues in the Muslim community, but what can we do as well as Muslims? And, we're bringing this up right now to bring more attention to it. And I noticed that a lot of other people as well are starting to bring more attention to it, which is awesome, because it's a subject that's not, very talked about or very discussed in our community. What's something that we can do just as normal people, as entrepreneurs, to help bring light to this as well, to maybe, contribute to bringing some awareness to this topic?
There is so much that is still yet to be done. I mean, I'm glad that people are talking about this more, but there's still so much more that could be done. So in regards to education is the most important thing. And there's not enough Muslim figures in the mental health sector than I feel like there needs to be, because it's hard enough to experience a mental health issue, like whoever you are. But as a Muslim, it just comes with a whole new set of complications to it. And I feel like you need somebody that can understand you. You need somebody that can relate to you, that can understand your perspectives. And I find that, especially as Muslims, because, you know, we live life a bit differently, and there's so many people that probably won't understand why we live the way that we live, or why we do things or say things that we do. But having more Muslim mental health figures that do understand that, because they're exactly the same, they would be the support that you would be able to get would be so much more effective, because sometimes it is a lot of things when it comes to like family or cultural stigmas or issues with your faith and things like that that impact your mental health, and those are the things that need to be tackled. It's not always just a big traumatic experience. Sometimes it is those things that maybe only another Muslim would be able to understand, or maybe someone that has the same ethnicity as you would be able to understand. So we need a more diverse range of people that are in this sector as professionals to be able to give that support. I think, again, like I said, the most important thing is the education. So one thing that I've noticed from like my own journey is that people, especially in our communities, are so resistant to change. Like, when you try and teach them something, they just don't want to know because they're so set in their ways. And this was one of the things for me, like when it comes to like family, the elder generations, they don't want to hear it. Like they don't want to hear it. The younger generations, or maybe like the generation, like my mum's generation, some of them are open to learning, you know, with a bit of a push and some consistency. But the elder generations, it's a lot harder to tackle. But you have to try and be consistent with it. And even if you don't manage to change the opinions of like your grandparents or whoever, the more education you're providing, the more people you're informing, eventually it will get to that point where the new generations are going to be the elder generations, and the stigmas will slowly disappear and they won't exist anymore, you know? I think this is something I was talking to somebody about as well. A lot of, I don't know about, like, I know that a lot of Muslims do it like here. I don't know how it's like in other cultures around the world, but when something good happens, everybody loves to talk about it. You know, this happened in my life, my kid did this, or this person did that, and we've got great news. When something bad happens, they hide away and they shield it as if it's something to be ashamed of. So like, nobody in my family knew about my suicide attempts until I started talking about them on a public level. And when I did, oh my God, the backlash that I got. Like the first time I went on the news, it wasn't a good thing for my family, you know, it wasn't a well done, you've achieved something great. It was something to be ashamed of, because I was speaking about subjects that are perceived as negative, you know. They couldn't understand that there was a positive reason as to why I would talk about something like that. Whereas from my perspective, it was, no, I'm doing this to help people. I'm doing this so that people can realize they're not alone, to increase the awareness. It's not about you. I'm not trying to make you look bad. I'm not trying to put myself in some kind of like light in public. Like, I'm doing this to help people for a good reason. And that is something that I really feel like families and communities need to start understanding more, that talking about your problems, number one, the way to sort out your problem is by talking about it, because the opposite of depression is expression. The reason why you suffer from depression is because you're not talking about things, you know. And just like you said earlier, there's so many people that are experiencing these things. I know like so many people in the Asian and the Muslim communities have now come out to me saying, you know, I experienced this, or, you know, it's a generational thing. You know, I had it, and then my mum had it, and my grandmother had it, and like it's coming down in the generations. And that the reason why it's happening is because people aren't speaking about it. People aren't speaking about it. So these unhealthy traits and these unhealthy lifestyles are now being copied and pasted as the generations go down. And that's why a grandmother may have suffered from depression, and then the granddaughter then suffers from it too, because nothing's changing in the middle. So you need to, like, these generational curses, as they call them, like, need to be tackled, and they need to be dealt with so that these things can stop happening. And we need to be able to speak openly about our issues with our mental health and stop perceiving it as a bad thing, because alhamdulillah, now I've got to that point where I can walk into a family gathering and talk about these things, and people don't give me that whole, oh my God, what the hell is she talking about? It's like, you know, like, people understand now, because I'm slowly breaking that barrier within my own family. And there's so many families out there that still need that. So the education is the most important thing by far.
100%. And you mentioned as well something really powerful, that like, talking about it is huge, right? Like, to be able to talk about it. And when you can't talk about it, then that means you're keeping everything inside, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. And as well, another point that you mentioned is that I really want to touch upon is breaking the cycle, because as you mentioned, it's kind of like, the grandma has a certain issue, and that she kind of transmits to her children, then the children will transmit it to the children, and it'll keep going unless someone actively realizes that, hey, maybe there's a problem here that needs to be addressed, and actually breaks the cycle. And it's interesting because every time, I don't know if you guys have watched like any of these like criminal series or, any of these like TV shows and movies where they kind of show you the backstory on the bad guy.
Yeah.
And it's always this really heartbreaking story about how he was actually maybe abused as a child, or, it usually comes from the environment that you grew up in. And unless you're aware to break the cycle, then, you're actually just kind of perpetrating this negativity into the world that could, in the end, just bubble up and cause something very, very bad, as like these criminals and these things that people that end up going crazy because they just have no outlet. They don't know, what do I do with this? I have this problem. No one's addressing it. I can't talk about it with anyone, and they just keep it inside and they end up just exploding. So I think it's huge. And I think it's so important. It's a lot more important than we think to be able to talk about it, to be able to bring it up, and to be able to bring awareness to it. So it's definitely a huge thing, because there's actually lives at stake. And just like you mentioned, and even in the comments, we have a lot of people commenting saying that, I totally agree that, I've had these feelings as well. I've had these thoughts as well. So it just goes to show that even within this community, even in entrepreneurs, even as Muslims, we go through these problems, we go through these issues, and it's so important to address it, guys. And it's so important to take care of it, because again, even if we were to just bring it back to what this group is about, guys, if you want to be at your best, and if you want to perform at your best as an entrepreneur in life, in business, whoever you are, you need to make sure that you address these issues, and you make sure that you really take the time to figure these things out, so that you can, inshallah, show up at your best and really be the best person that you can be for yourself, for your family, and for the people around you. And I think
100%.
that's what makes the world a better place, So again, you can't fill someone else's cup from an empty cup. You got to fill your cup as well. So Haleema, my question to you, as entrepreneurs, we sometimes feel like we're not reaching our goals a lot, right? Like the people here, they might feel like, we set these goals for ourselves. We set these high bars for achievement. We sometimes don't always reach them. And that's completely okay. But that can sometimes affect our mindset. It can sometimes, cause us to feel like we're not worthy, we're not good enough. These feelings like maybe, we end up not believing in ourselves, and we end up losing confidence, which is huge over time if these things just continue to stay within us. So what are some tips that you can give us to stay positive in the face of challenges, in the face of failure, which is something that we experience on a daily basis?
As an entrepreneur, I mean, everything in life is about balance anyway, but as an entrepreneur, like, you are going to go through, guaranteed to happen, you will go through challenges, you're going to go through trials, you're going to have setbacks, things will go wrong just as well as things will go right. And the way that there's a quote that I heard, and I literally go by that, but it says that when you succeed at something, it brings you closer to your goal, but when you fail at something, it develops your character. And essentially it's your character that then takes you to achieve the goals that you have set for yourself anyway, So understanding and acknowledging that I will go through these setbacks, but they're not going to, a failure isn't a failure. To me, there's no such thing as failing. There's always going to be a lesson behind that, and that lesson will shape you and make you a better person, and you'll end up reaching your goals eventually. Contentment and gratitude, these are a couple of things that I talk about in my ebook as well, but programming your mind to being in that state of gratitude, so that when you do face a hardship or a setback, you'll be okay regardless. Because for me, I live in this state of contentment where no matter what happens, I'm fine. I might not achieve something I wanted to, but it's okay. I'm fine, because there's a reason behind it, and I'm not going to fight that reason. If it was meant to be, it would have happened there and then. So when you retrain your mind to, be grateful for everything, regardless of what's going on, it becomes your default state. So if something goes wrong, it's oh, okay, that's fine. It happened. Never mind. Just keep going, Having big goals is great. We should all have big goals. We should always want to achieve more in life. But mastering that art of contentment and gratitude will enable you to just be okay no matter what. Like I said, it's all about balance. You're never going to know how it feels like to be successful if you don't know what it's like to have a failure. You're never going to know what it's like to be happy unless you've experienced sadness. It's just about learning how to manage those setbacks in a healthy way, so that those only become moments. They don't become days, weeks, months, or even years.
100%. And that's exactly what I also tell my students as well, is that it's important to really realize that every single thing that happens to you.
I think something happened with the sound.
No worries. Let me make sure that we're still up. All right, can you hear me now?
Still can't hear you.
So, all right, let me re-add you into the.
It's like I'm trying to lip read, so I can understand you're asking me whether I can hear you, but I can't hear you.
All right, let me.
You can hear me.
Yeah, let me re-add.
Yeah,
let me re-add.
So.
All right, can you hear me now?
Oh, okay, I can hear you. I still can't see myself though. Can you see me?
I can't see you, unfortunately, but if you want, you can rejoin. What we'll do is now we'll actually dive into the audience Q&A portion, inshallah. So if you'd like, you can rejoin and I'll gather the questions up.
Yeah,
awesome. Go for it. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed this episode, inshallah. There's a lot of comments coming in. A lot of you guys are saying how much you relate to what Haleema is saying and to all the stories that she's sharing with us today. And honestly, I think we brought up so many important topics, so many things that need to be discussed and addressed within our community as entrepreneurs, as Muslims, inshallah. So right now, me and Haleema are going to take all of your questions and we're going to answer them. And we're going to make sure that we give you the best answers possible. So go ahead and drop your questions in the comment section, inshallah, and we'll make sure to go ahead and answer them. So drop all your questions in for our Q&A with myself and Haleema. All right, so we got you on audio, but it looks like video's not working. If not, all good. We'll just go ahead and answer the questions audio only if that's cool with you. Let me know.
I don't mind. I mean, yeah, I can't see this either. I guess we'll just answer. Someone's trying to stop us from doing this.
Exactly.
That's what happens when you're trying to make breakthroughs happen.
100%. All right, cool. So we'll go ahead and answer them, guys. So the black box, Haleema is there. She's listening. Unfortunately, we're having an issue with video, but we'll just go ahead and answer all your questions, inshallah, for our Q&A portion. I wish that we had video, but unfortunately, I hope that you still stick with us for the Q&A, guys. So we'll go ahead and dive into some questions that we have here from the audience. Let's dive with one that we have here from Sister Aska Rini. So she says that what are the requirements you need to have to start a professional coaching business where she wants to, she mentioned that before, which is a really interesting business idea. She wants to start a business where she's coaching young people, young adults or even teenagers on how to write for healing, to write so that they can heal in terms of mental health. So to actually write as a method of therapy. She said, do you have to be certified? Do you need any requirements, or can you just go ahead and kind of start something like this? What are the requirements for doing a business like that?
It's funny that question would be asked, because I literally had this moment myself where I was going through my business and I was getting so many messages from people that were asking me if I did like coaching sessions or therapy sessions. And I paused because it freaked me out a bit, because I thought, oh my God, like I don't have the qualifications to do this. Oh, I don't want to mess up. Like, this is somebody's life. I need to take it seriously. And I bought like 10 different courses, and I started to study all of these different things so that I would be well equipped to doing it. And then I went to visit a few friends, and we were talking about things that we were working on. And I mentioned the fact that I was studying more before I delved into the one-to-one coaching. And one of the friends that was there said to me, like, you don't need to do that. Like, you're smart enough and you understand everything that you're doing, which is why you are where you are right now. Like, you have the capability to help people. And if you try and learn somebody else's syllabus, you're going to be teaching somebody else's psychology instead of your own. And when that was said to me, it literally stopped. Like, I paused and I had to take a moment, because it's true. Like, okay, of course I get it. You know, like, I wanted to take it seriously because, you know, mental health, it's people's lives in my hands. And fair enough, always educate yourself and always grow, but don't use that as a reason not to do it. Like, if we've got, like I said before, we have everything that we need inside of us. We've got the truth there. We've got the answers. So if there's something that you really, really want to do, you have the passion for it, and deep down, you know that you have the knowledge to do it as well, then do it. Don't wait to get a qualification to do it. Do the qualification if you want to, if it makes you feel better, it makes you feel more secure about it, but don't use that as not having it as a reason to hold off.
100%. And I think that's really the biggest thing. And it's something we always recommend as well. And it's to take the first step and take action. As you grow and as you work towards this goal, make sure that you're constantly trying to be the best person that you can be within this goal, guys. So make sure that you're always trying to, learn more about your topic of expertise to become a professional in this topic, and to also make sure that you are gathering as much experience as possible working with people, inshallah, and working with your clients or people that you just want to collaborate with, so you can get into the industry in advance and get some knowledge there, get some experience there. So I love that answer from you, Haleema. Thank you. We'll take another one if that's okay with you.
Yeah, of course.
Awesome. So we have another one here. And again, so we have Haleema on audio. We don't have video right now. It's not working, guys, but we can all hear her fine. So we'll continue, inshallah. So we have another user here, and it says, I'm a parenting coach for Muslim moms, and I also deliver programs in school and online. Wait, what's the question? I'm loving this connection. Oh, there you go. Okay, sorry. So that's actually a statement. So let me go ahead and pull up the question itself. We have so many comments coming in, mashallah. Oh, we got another one here. I think I have you on video. Should I add you?
I'm trying to figure it out for my laptop. Hopefully I can come in. The camera's not as good, but it works either way.
Right. Awesome. We're back with Haleema. If you can just put in maybe.
Can you hear me? Because I'm keeping my phone.
The device I've already been on for the audio, and I'm just using my laptop in a way so that you can still see me at the same time.
Okay, so we'll do it that way. Then we'll have the third black square be the be essentially the for the audio. That's better. All right, guys. So we have another question here, inshallah. And drop your questions for myself and Haleema in regards to mental health. And we're doing our best to be able to kind of make sure that this keeps rolling despite the technical issues. So we have another question here, and this is a really good one. And it says, it's not related to business, but the question is, how do you encourage dialogue within a family who don't speak a lot about their problems? So we talked about that. That's an issue, right? People that aren't open about these problems, and there's that stigma around bringing it up. How do you encourage dialogue within a family like that? What would be any tips that you can maybe give this person?
You have to go through the uncomfortable in order to have that breakthrough. So I've been there and I've done that, and I've come from a family unit where talking about these things is very, very weird. It's not normal. So right. At the beginning, when I came out with it, and I said that these are the things that I'm going through, and I started talking about mental health and I started being open, it wasn't received well. I wasn't given the feedback that I necessarily would have wanted. But it's something I had to push through regardless. I had to go through a temporary feeling of not caring about the opinions of other people. And in turn, now, like two years later, I'm in a place where I can openly speak about these things to my family, because I worked through the uncomfortable phase. So if you're not too sure how to do it, there's no magic formula. You just have to do it. Just talk about it. Deal with the responses that you get. If they're not great responses, find, people that you can speak to and that, can help you feel better, because you might, not feel great afterwards. You might not be happy with certain things that your family say to you. So have good people around you, friends, associates that you can talk to that can give you support, emotional support, but don't quit. Don't stop talking about these things, because if I had stopped talking about these things, then I wouldn't be in the great situation that I'm in right now. I had to keep pushing, and I had to stay consistent at talking about these uncomfortable things until one day it just became like, okay.
100%. And I completely agree. And honestly, like Haleema said, it's really about just bringing it up, right? Like if you start the conversation, there is going to be some form of backlash. You just really can't, you can't change that. You can't stop it. But the goal behind that, or I guess really the process behind that, is to make sure that you also kind of approach it from a place of empathy and understand that it might be something that hasn't been opened before within this family. It might not be something that really was discussed before, and to understand that there might be some sort of pushback, but being okay with navigating that pushback and to make these people understand and taking the time to make them understand, instead of reacting where, maybe we get angry that they're not getting it, and we get frustrated that they're not relating to us. We can instead, make sure that we relate that, listen, maybe this is something new to them, and this is not something that they've experienced before. They don't know how to address it. So let's go ahead and make sure that we, approach it kindly, really approach it slowly and approach it kindly, but make sure that we do approach it and we don't ignore it. What do you think about that, Haleema?
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. It's always the way that you do things as well. Like for me, I didn't go all guns in blazing, create a big storm, essentially. It was like, for example, when it came to like my grandmother, I would go and talk to her when she was on her own, because, doing it around people might trigger something in her that might not necessarily have been good for her, for me, for the situation. So whenever I used to talk to her about my work, I used to go and see her on my own. When I first came out with my website, I went to see her on my own, and I actually talked her through the website. Any event that I've spoken at, when I released my ebook, when I wanted to show her any of these things, I went on my own and I showed her on my own, and I talked her through it and explained to her, because it's not like she was unhappy because, she doesn't want me to be happy. It's because she just didn't understand, and that's basically where the whole families not being able to communicate come from, because they just don't understand. So when we take the time to educate our families and, enlighten them, it just makes all the difference. So now, like with my grandmother, like she's proud of me for the work that I do. When I came out with my ebook, she was really, really happy with it. My mum was probably the person that shared it with the most people out of everybody, when 2 years ago that would have never been the case, because I took the time to explain to them. I took the time to teach them, to help them understand me, who I am, why I'm doing the things I'm doing, what it means to me. And they're not going to understand at the beginning, but the more you explain it to them and the more you stay consistent within your purpose and what you're doing, they'll come around eventually. It might take longer than you want it to, but it will happen. You just
Inshallah,
have to
definitely.
believe it.
And also embrace the attitude of the Prophet ﷺ, which is, again, when he came to the disbelievers and he was talking about Islam, they didn't just go out of the blue and be like, yeah, we agree. There was a lot of pushback, but he took his time to still be kind to them, to understand them, and to make sure that he did his best to give them the best of example and to be patient with them. And I think that's something, kind of the prophetic character that we can embrace as well in this situation, inshallah. So we'll take another one if that's cool with you, Haleema.
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. So we have a question from Riz and one from Frey. We'll do the one from Riz first, which is, what are your views on toxic positivity? A term that gets thrown around a lot. So that's an interesting term. What are your views on that? Let's get your opinion.
Yeah, I know about toxic positivity. It's just the notion of like, oh, you just have to feel good, and that's how you get through everything. And okay, yeah, it's good to be positive. It's good to have that mentality of everything's going to be okay. Like, I talk about affirmations all the time. Like, there's a whole chapter in my ebook dedicated to affirmations and gratitude and positive thinking. So it's something that's needed. But when the whole toxic positivity comes into it, is when people think that just thinking positive is how you make your problems better. That's not the case. Think positive, but you have to do the work as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Positivity is something that's temporary. It's like, if you have a bad day, you can just let yourself feel good and then get over it. But if you have issues that need to be dealt with, then just feeling good for a little while is not going to help that. You need to sit down. You need to take a moment to learn about yourself. Like I was talking about the healing work, like the dark side of things, the ugly side of the recovery. And sometimes you just need to sit there and acknowledge that you're going through something negative. Like if you're experiencing a negative emotion, it's like I said, I'd stop running away from it. Sit down and actually acknowledge how you're feeling. So if I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling upset about something, I'll sit there and I'll say, okay, this is how I'm feeling. I acknowledge that I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling scared, or, I'm frustrated. And it's okay for me to feel this way. I allow myself to feel the emotions that are going through my body, but then I talk myself through it. So, okay, this is how I'm feeling at the moment. I accept it. It's okay. But it's just a temporary feeling that's not going to last forever. And as I talk myself through it, eventually the feelings pass, but I don't resist it. If you feel it, let yourself feel it.
100%. And we as well have, we have so many amazing things. So we're going to roll through them a little bit quickly, guys, because mashallah, we've never had that many questions on an episode. So despite the technical difficulties, it looks like things are definitely popping here. So let's go ahead and give you another one, Haleema, because a lot of people are excited to ask you questions and get your opinion on this. So
we might have to do a part 2 when the cameras are working properly as well.
100%, guys. But for now, I'll have Haleema because she's answering the questions. So I have another one here, and it's from Juman, and she says that that I'm a refugee lawyer, and the stories of rape and torture that I hear or read on a daily basis are worse than any Hollywood movie. I get moments when I fall into despair and hopelessness about the world and humanity in general. How do I avoid that and remain with a positive mindset so I can have the energy to continue helping my clients and for my own mental health as well? So this is, she's a refugee lawyer, and she really hears some horrifying stories, and it sometimes causes her to feel a bit hopeless and really fall into despair. How can she stay positive and remain positive to help her clients?
Look after yourself first. Like, especially in the type of work that it is that you're doing, you can't just live for everybody else, because it's going to take its toll on you. You're going to get ill. Like, you'll get to a point where you're just going to shut down. And obviously you don't want to do that, because clearly, by the sounds of it, the work that you're doing is very, very important. So you need to have time dedicated to yourself, looking after yourself, like we were saying, filling your own cup. If you need to I would suggest getting therapy as well. Like, you don't have to, be going through severe issues in order to have therapy. You can just go and have somebody to talk to that can help you manage the emotions that you're experiencing as a result of your work. Like, you can't be good to anybody else unless you're good to yourself first. So if your career is something that's so emotionally demanding, such as that, then I would definitely suggest taking time out to focus on yourself, taking time out to look after yourself, even if it's for 1 hour per day where you just go off on your own. Whether it's doing some meditation, whether it's writing your feelings, whether it's like any other form of self-love exercise, but definitely have an outlet for yourself, such as therapy or somebody to speak to that can help you process your emotions in a healthy way, because coping mechanisms are the difference between being healthy and then falling into a really, really dark place, and you don't want to end up there. And it's something that can happen if you don't take the right avenues.
100%. I completely agree with that, Haleema. And I think when you work in these situations where you have, you work with people that might struggle as well, and that might go through their own issues as well, it can sometimes as well, have that same effect on you, because especially if you're an empath or you're someone that relates to others, then you're going to have, feelings where you can understand what they're going through. And that's in turn going to cause you to go through those same feelings as well. And it can hurt your mindset and hurt your ability to show up at your best for your clients. So I completely agree to make sure that you take care of yourself and take care and nurture your mental health as well. So we got so many more, actually. We'll try to take two more, inshallah, guys. So we have a lot more, but we'll take two more, inshallah. And then for all the rest of the questions, what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to have to bring Haleema back on this podcast, because we've had issues now. And so it's just an amazing excuse to bring her back on.
I'm happy with that excuse.
100%. And we'll make sure that we don't have any technical issues next time, inshallah. So we got two more, actually, that we'll go through. One that I really wanted to address. Let me see if I can pull it up here. It was close. Let's see. This was a really, really good one. I just want to make sure. Okay, there it is. So this person says, it's a very important topic. I generally know someone who's going through poor mental health and anxiety, but refuses to get support, i.e. meds, therapy, etc. What advice would you give on this? I think that's a very pertinent question, very important question.
It's tricky, because the response that I have isn't necessarily the response that you probably want to hear, but you cannot help somebody that doesn't want to be helped. And it's sad, because sometimes obviously you can see something that person can't. You obviously know that they're going through certain issues, and you know how you can help them. But if they're not accepting of it and they don't want to receive what you have to offer, then there's nothing that you can do, because you can give them everything. You can give them all the platforms, all the solutions. But if they don't want to get better, they're not going to listen. They're not going to take anything into account. And, again, I've been there, like I've been in those situations where I've tried to help people, and I've tried to, push them into getting therapy or, doing something to help them feel better, even making doctor's appointments for them. And what they'd end up doing was they'd end up not going to the doctor's appointments. They'd end up lying to me, and they'd end up going against all the things that I'm offering to them, because they just weren't ready to get better. And in turn, by me putting so much energy into trying to make that happen, I was getting ill myself, because I was putting all this energy into trying to help somebody that didn't want to be helped. And sometimes you have to realize that, okay, I'm not getting anywhere here, and maybe I just need to take a step back. Hopefully the day will come where, the individual does realize that, okay, something's going on and I need to fix it. But you can't lose yourself in the process of trying to help somebody else. It doesn't work. Like it never works.
100%. I completely agree, guys. And I've tried it myself as well. I think every person that's tried that can attest to the fact that you can't help someone until they want to help themselves. You just can't help someone until they want to help themselves. So make sure that, you can try to give as much advice as possible. You can try to guide, but you can't force someone to take action if they don't want to. It has to come from them. So that's a very wise answer. And sometimes it's important to know what battles you can win and what battles you just can't, and you have to do your best to understand. And there's kind of that famous prayer, which is, forget the exact wording, which is to ask God to grant you the wisdom to know the difference between the things that you can change and the things that you can't. And I think that's a very important thing to do. We'll take one very last question, inshallah, and then we'll close off there, guys. I know there's a lot more, so we'll make sure to bring Haleema back on this podcast because the response was absolutely amazing. So this last one here is, what's the best advice you can give to a person who's around someone with mental health issues? So someone that's maybe around someone else that's experiencing these issues and they might be affected by that.
Learn about it. It's the most important thing, because mental health is very complex. The most important thing that you can do is learn. Like go out of your way, go online, read books, learn about the actual issue itself. So that you're clued up on things and there's things that you can look out for. But try and talk to them. Like, obviously, I know it's not easy. Some people are reluctant to opening up, but try to understand things from their perspective. And don't listen to respond, just listen to understand. Just ask them, how do you feel like on a day-to-day basis? Or if you see them going through something in the moment, just ask them, how do you feel? Like, don't interrogate them, or why do you think you feel that way? Like, don't make it into a therapy session. Just ask them how they feel and take in the information so you can understand a bit better. When you educate yourself and you become aware of their feelings and their emotions, you can support them in a better way. So, for example, if they've got certain, like, let's just say OCD, for example, if they're having a moment where they're having intrusive thoughts and they're trying to deal with it, instead of you getting frustrated because you understand it, you just give them the space to do what they're doing. Or if someone's suffering from depression and they just need to be on their own and they're locked up in their room, check up on them, ask them if they're okay. But if they're snappy or they don't want anything from you, give them the space. Education is the most important thing. Is, like I've said throughout, educate yourself so that you understand. When you understand something, you can then support someone in a better way. You don't have to have the answers. You don't have to be, a therapist or a psychologist and come at them with all these different tips and tricks. But understanding it so that you can support them better is just the most important thing when it comes to friends and family.
100%. I completely agree with that. And I think it's huge because when you understand the things that they go through and maybe the issues that they're facing, it'll help you be more empathetic as well, understand when you need to take a step back and when you need to kind of intervene. So I think that's really the best answer that we can give. So thank you for that, Haleema. So Haleema, we've answered a lot of questions. We've gone through a lot of topics today and we've addressed so many amazing things. And we brought up so many different discussions that, talking about Muslims and talking about the entrepreneur community and how mental health affects both, and how we need to perform at our best and how we can take care of ourselves and our mental health. We brought up so many amazing discussions. So guys, we'll make sure to bring Haleema back on, inshallah, for another episode. But for now, Haleema, how can people connect with you? Because a lot of people just loved absolutely what you've shared with us today, and they love to hear about your journey and your insights. So how can people connect with you, support your work, and just, stay connected with everything that you're doing?
Okay, so my website is haleemaspeaks.com. Haleema, my Haleema is spelled Haleema. There's no I or anything in the middle there, to clarify. My Instagram is probably what I'm most active on, and it's Haleema.speaks. Obviously, my Facebook is Haleema Amina. Those are the three avenues that I'm most active on when it comes to my work. And if any of those that are interested also in the ebook that I came out with, it's a free ebook. It's called 12 Steps to Gaining Control of Your Mental Health. Maybe we can just link it in here.
Definitely. Yeah.
So you can also get it directly from my website anyway. And that, inshallah, that will help. I've had some great responses from people in regards to like the steps that they've read and that they've implemented into their life. So hopefully it will help some of you at the same time as well.
Inshallah, definitely. So Haleema, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on this podcast, for sharing your insights with everyone here, and just for bringing up all of these discussions today. I think this is one of the most powerful episodes we've ever filmed on the podcast. The response was absolutely insane, and just people coming in with all their questions. I've never had that before, so it was just absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, and we look forward.
I'm grateful to be on here, so thank you.
100%. We'll make sure to bring you on again, inshallah, guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Make sure to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe on Spotify, iTunes, all the platforms. Check out Haleema's website. Download her ebook. We'll link to it in the description on whatever platform you are, inshallah. And join us on the next episode every Tuesday live inside of our Facebook group. We'll see you guys. Assalamu alaikum.